Finishing up our complex numbers notes. So we know I, this is like I to the first power. We know that's equal to I. And we've already established that I squared is -1. Now recall from your properties of exponents, your exponent rules. If I multiply like terms, I add their exponents. So I to the first power times I squared is equivalent to I cubed. So I cubed would be I times -1, which is -I. And I to the fourth, that would be equivalent to I squared times I squared. So -1 times -1 is +1. Okay. Then I to the fifth, that's the same thing as I to the first power times I to the fourth power. So I to the first power, I times 1, that gives us I. I to the sixth power, that would be I squared times I to the sixth. Or sorry, not I to the sixth, I to the fourth, I apologize. I squared times I to the fourth will give us I to the sixth. So I squared -1 times I to the fourth +1, that gives us -1. Then I to the seventh, that would be I cubed times I to the fourth. I cubed times I to the fourth, -I times 1, that gives us -I. And I to the eighth, that would be I to the fourth times I to the fourth, which would be 1 times 1, which is 1. So if you notice, there's a pattern here that repeats every multiple of 4 in my exponent. So if we have I raised to an exponent, we can determine what that is by following this pattern. So let's look at our exponent here, 20. Does 20 divide it by 4 evenly? And the answer is yes. So it will go through this cycle 5 times and land on I, where I is to the power equals 1. So if it goes through an even number of times, it's going to land on the last one. So I to the 20th is +1. Now I to the 27th does not divide evenly by 4. So the biggest multiple of 4 that goes into 27 is 24. So that would be times 6, and that leaves us with a remainder of 3. So it's going to go through this cycle 6 times, and then I'm going to have 3 left over. So that's 1, 2, 3, and I land on -I. 33 also does not divide evenly by 4. So if I divide 33 by 4, that's going to give me 8 with a remainder of 1. So it's going to go through this cycle 8 times, and then I'm going to have 1 left over and land on +I. 97 does not divide evenly by 4, but it gives me 24 with a remainder of 1. So I'm going to go through the cycle 24 times, have a remainder of 1, and that lands me with +I. And that concludes our complex numbers notes.